Hello, welcome back to Unleashing the Baseball Mindset. This is Dr. Kyle Stahl. We have Coach Dylan Gotro, Coach Chris Pike, and today we have another special guest. Welcome to the show, Chad Kaye. So, Chad, why don't you give us a real quick introduction? Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've done, and I think that'll be a good start.
Yeah. Well, first off, appreciate you guys having me. Excited to be on this first podcast. Hope to be on many more. A little background on myself. I coached for 28 years at the college level. Been very, very fortunate. Had an unbelievable journey. I got an opportunity right out of college. I finished up my playing career at the University of Southern Mississippi. I was fortunate to jump right into the JUCO level in the state of Mississippi. Coached for a few years there, became a head coach at Meridian Community College. Then started my journey in Division One. Had a stint at Southeastern Louisiana University in the Southland Conference, which then led me to the University of Southern Mississippi, where I coached for 12 years. Had an unbelievable career, 8 regionals, trip to Omaha, Super Regional Championship. It catapulted me to the SEC. I spent some time at Texas A&M and the University of South Carolina. It was then where I decided I'm 51 years old, got to the age where NIL, transfer portal, kind of rubbed me the wrong way, to be honest. It's not why I got in it. It's unfortunate what it's become, but at the same time, it was time for me to retire. And so we moved back to Hattiesburg. I have two kids, wife and two kids. Both of my children grew up at Oak Grove High School, which is here in Hattiesburg. They wanted to finish up here where they started. So we moved back here, and then I opened up my own business. And what I'm doing now is a much more customized approach to development in both baseball and softball. This is definitely something very unique, new to the South for sure, new to a lot of places in the country. It all stems off of the branch of motor preference, but Cliff Notes version of what I do, I can bring an athlete here and use in multiple avenues of an assessment form to determine how God built that young man or young woman's body, structurally, visually, with their motor pattern, and create basically an assessment or a profile, I should say, through an assessment, which then can help myself uh, and their current coaches coach them and develop them quicker. I call it basically the cheat sheet to the individual. For many years, I'm guilty of this myself at a younger age in my young coaching career, just like most coaches. There's way too much cookie cutting. There's way too much biomechanical language being used in development. And we are all guilty of that as coaches. And then we want to quickly turn to the kid and say they have no feel and they have no aptitude. They're not capable of executing what maybe a coach is asking them to do, so they become uncoachable. And it's really not fair to the kid. And unfortunately, they never reach their ceiling mentally or physically because of it. And it's an unfortunate lane that we are in. It's not that it's with the wrong intentions for any coach or any instructor, but there is a better way. And that's what my business model is about. It's about giving the avenue for the coach and the player or the parent to help create a regimen and help the coach and the individual understand how they're built to move and how they should be designing a training regimen both skillfully and in the strength and conditioning department to make them a better mover, which then in turn makes them a better athlete, which then in turn makes them more confident. So that's the Cliff Notes version. It definitely gets into much more detail, but it's I've had a blast doing it. I work with so many college athletes, professional athletes. I have a AAA guy coming in here next week. I have first rounders. I mean, I have a little bit of everything. It's been a blast. Every athlete in every sport, and specifically our sports, are looking for the edge to, again, just to help themselves reach their ceiling. And this day and age is so competitive, obviously. Um, and you absolutely have to turn over every stone to give yourself the best chance to play at the highest level. So that's what I'm about.
Well,
What is what's the age that, and I do remember talking about this, but what's generally the age that you start working with?
Very physical, mature 14-year-old could begin, but 15's probably the best age bracket. It's not to say you couldn't see some things and recognize some things with some guys at a younger age, but it would have to be more generic, a little bit more vanilla. It wouldn't be to the great length of detail that we do, obviously, the higher the older and higher end athletes. And
Mhm.
I say higher end athlete. I got to be careful when I say that because it's not just about higher end athletes. I always use the reference points of when I coached. I always had questions why. Why could this guy do this drill so well and then the next guy couldn't? Why could Dylan Gotro not see a slider and my brother could? It was fun. Fun. I was never the coach that always had the answers. I always want to explore the whys. I knew everyone's different, but I could never put my finger on categorizing, if that's a good word, or just having an understanding. And it's difficult. It's very difficult for coaches at all levels when you're dealing with collective groups because it's so easy just to run guys through drill series. But when everyone's doing the same, just like the strength and conditioning department, why is everybody working out exactly the same when we're all different movers? And it's not that you can't create a baseline of strength or a baseline of skill set, but there's has to be some point to where you're should be categorizing athletes based on their human anatomy and movement pattern to start customizing this to get them to truly reach their ceiling. And I was always curious about it. I didn't have all the answers. I always was the coach that asked questions. Of course, I had my philosophies, had my beliefs. I was very successful. I'm very proud of the the accomplishments that I had, but also part of the accomplishments came with all the great people that I was around, from players to coaches to strength coaches to athletic trainers to help build my education level to understand that there's more than one way. There's a lot of ways, but to get myself into the lane that I'm in, now I can not only help the potential college athlete, but even for like little kids. Yeah, so
mm,
I get calls all the time about asking to work with young kids, at the age brackets of anywhere from 6 to 12. And I typically turn them down because I think there are levels of that age bracket that needs to be more generic, and parents would be frustrated if they came in and watched me honestly work with a kid in that age bracket, because what I would do more of is less talking and more home run derby.
yeah.
And the reason for that is because the athlete does not, especially a very immature physical and mental athlete at that age bracket, they can't process biomechanics. They can't process motor patterns. We need to teach our youth how to move better. We are creating baby robots because of our industry, this business model of lessons and coaching little league and so forth. And it's not like this is just new. This has been going on for generations. I mean, I remember some things that my little league coach, my own father, did to me that was so wrong. He had the right intentions, but I wish he would have just let me just be a free mover, be a free athlete. Let me find my coordination at whatever aspect of the game that it required. But in turn, instead, everybody thinks they can buy lessons or instruction to create a young athlete's success story. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
And
Hey,
Chad,
Kyle.
one thing that, yeah, go ahead.
I got a question about that because Chad, this is something that me and Kyle talked about after we had that conversation with you and your partner. So my question to you, Kyle, would be, what do you see as the proper way? And I mean, we've discussed this before, but I want to go over it on the podcast as well. The proper way to train a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old when it comes to movement patterns and when it comes to teaching them the movement patterns of baseball. And to kind of pivot off that as well is what I think me, Chris, and you talked about, I think is most important at this age, the ages that I coach, is how to compete, right? I mean, that's one thing that's missing right now is it's all these lessons and the mental aspect and the competition aspect are completely left out with all these lessons and the coaching that they get on the field, right? So it's kind of a two-part question. I guess it's a one-part question, but I wanted to mention that too, is like, we need to teach these kids how to compete. We need to teach these kids how to fight, and that's what's missing. And obviously the motor patterns, the biomechanics of everything, I think can be taught to a certain extent, if they have faulty movement patterns. But I think you're right in the way of two is just letting it play its way out.
Yep. And I'll kind of go back on my words for a second. I'm not saying a young athlete can't be taught something, but I don't think it can be forced is more my message, to where everyone has to have their stance this way, or everyone has to swing down, or everyone has to have a launch angle swing. I just think that's where you can use your wisdom and give the kid, try this. Let's see what is easier for you versus you have to do this. And I think that's the message. And to your point of the competition, I'm a big believer. Of course, I recruited all my life, 27 years I recruited. So I've seen it all and all over the country. You're right. The competition level is a huge missing piece to this. And as much as I embrace travel baseball, the platform that it provides, because it does, it provides a lot of great things. I blame travel baseball on the lack of competition.
100%.
It's not the
100%.
kid's fault. I also blame the parents, and I am a parent, and I will own that as much. But travel baseball provides so many opportunities. Think about, I don't know how old all you guys were, but when we played, there was no travel baseball, or at least when I played.
Yeah.
And when you lose with your Legion team or your all-star team, you go home and it's time to get ready for basketball, baseball, or football. So there's an element of it's over. It's never over in this generation. Again, a lot of positives to that, but that's where the lack of competition, because, well, we lose this weekend, it's okay.
We
We're
can get a
going back
ring next weekend.
Exactly. And it starts at such a young age, and they're playing year round now. So it never stops. So and it's like that everywhere. It's really all sports now. And that's why these kids never have the type of competition. I hate it when parents or old coaches say kids today just don't compete like us. No, they don't, but they didn't live in on our platform either. If they would have grown up on our platform, they would compete more.
It's funny, we talked about that a couple podcasts ago.
Yeah, they live in it's just a byproduct of the times.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
it's not completely their fault. And quite frankly, I do think kids overtrain too much too in the skill side of our sport. Not the strength and conditioning, Dylan, in your lane, but definitely in the skill train. Like, they never get to put the bat down. I mean, I work with a lot of big leaguers kids in this area, and we were talking about this last night and through my business model. And he's like, man, the biggest difference he sees with his own son is like he never stops swinging the bat. Like, I would put the bat down for months And this guy played 10 years in the big leagues. And so, like, that's the part of this that I think we lose as adults in this business industry that we lose sight of. And I know it's a faster pace. I know there's the opportunity, there's more competition because there's more volume, there's more customized training, like the things that I'm doing. The recruiting model with the travel opportunity platform is bigger than ever. So like I get it all. And I don't have the answers, but it's just all a byproduct of where we are.
Hey, let me jump in too on this if I can, because and Chad, I think you're just hitting the nail on the head on the competition side with the travel ball and all these endless tournaments and stuff. But another thing I'm thinking, as you were talking earlier about, all these metrics and biomechanics, and it just makes my head spin. I'm the same age as you, essentially, and the game that I grew up learning and playing is in my mind not the game that's being played today because of all these biometrics and things like that. And I wonder if because we were programming these kids so much, this biometric and mindset, that we've taken the competition out of the game for them. Because we're giving them this pre-written program of here is how you should hit the ball. And the game that I know of, the mental game, the having a feel for the game, it's a game of instinct. It's a figuring out a way to get on base. They don't know how to do that because we're giving them this program that says, well, this is how you do it. So it is the travel ball model, but it's also all of the specialized instruction that you're talking about.
Yeah, but Chris, I won't even blame it all on travel ball. I'll blame it on this phone. They can flip social media and all they see is metrics on this, that. My own son, my own flesh and blood, 18 years old. He's going to pitch at a junior college in Mississippi, just committed. He's throwing a bullpen in here yesterday. He is a left-handed pitcher. He's a low 3/4 arm slot. He's got a 2-seam. He's got a natural run. He can cut a baseball. He can really, really spin the ball. And we're sitting here working yesterday on 3 pitches, really 4, because the 2-seam and the cutter is more of a 4-seam grip with his changeup. And I got him literally, and of course, he's been through the whole VPS assessment. He is in profile. We're working on moving. We're just trying to move on the mound. And I give him a competitive target, 2 inches of a pipe, 2 inches. And I'm asking him to take his 4 pitches and attack this 2-inch pipe. And this son grows up in my house. He hears this every day. And after about the 25th pitch, he says, "You think I'm throwing hard?" I wanted to strangle him because of what you're saying. But it's not his fault, because what does he do? He flips on the phone and he's got to throw 105. He sees we have 4 SEC commitments in our region right now, and he sees these guys throwing 94. So it's consuming them.
Yeah.
And it's because of the phone, the internet. Well, it's the internet, but it's through the phone. But you get where I'm going with that. Yeah. So they're conditioned. And this one lives in my house, and he's a coach's kid. That's the first thing he says is, how hard do you think I'm throwing? I'm like, I don't care.
Not as hard as I'm about to punch.
Yes, exactly. I said, son, you're left-handed. This is about getting outs. So if I look at that and I laugh, I was that upset, but I laugh. I'm like, this is our battle. This is why we're talking about this.
It is. I'll tell you too. And I mean, I've been asking this question for a lot of years now. And I was 2 weeks ago, I was with Steve Rodriguez with the Players Way, which is, real interesting stuff. And I asked him, I'll tell you his answer is, does the game ever get back to the game we know, where these kids, these pitchers are, more concerned about getting the guy out than they are how hard did I throw it?
No.
I don't know. I have to believe that. I wish that it would.
I mean, if they're Amish, and they don't, I mean, that's not a joke. Like, I mean, it's funny, but like, there's too much for these kids, man. And even I
Mm-hmm.
think even if you didn't have that, the focus from the parents and a lot of coaches,
Yeah.
same thing, right?
Yep.
What's his velo? What's his velo? What's his velo?
No doubt.
What's it? You know,
What's the spin rate?
yeah. What's
What's
his
his
spin
hard?
rate?
Oh yeah.
It's all of that,
What's his
man.
vert? You know, that's the messages, and that's what's happening in recruiting. And I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah,
I'm guilty
yeah.
of it too.
Well,
So at the end of
I mean, I think that, you know, at your level, Chad, and the big leagues for sure, like those things have a place in the game at that
Mhm.
level. But, you know, if we're talking about 6 to 12-year-olds,
oh yeah,
they don't
yeah.
have a place in that game.
No, you're right. Yes, it is about.
We used to have parents kind of question us, and again, my kid's in high school now, so thank goodness I'm past all that. But you know, when we were 10, and of course, you know, our guest last week, Chad Durbin, was who I coached with, and you know, he would show up for practice and throw out 4 tennis balls and say, "Y'all have fun. That's practice
Yeah.
today. Let's have some home run derby with tennis balls."
Mhm.
And the parents are looking at him like, "Yeah, but you know, you played in the big leagues. Aren't you going to teach them how to throw this and this?" And he's like, "No, we're gonna let them hit a tennis ball. That's what we're gonna do
Yeah.
today." You know.
Well,
Yeah, because think about it first. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kyle.
Well, I just wanted to touch quickly on what Dylan had asked earlier about learning, and Chris, since you brought up like 6 to 12-year-olds, if we look at the learning process from a very, very young age, kids learn by sometimes they call it the mimetic theory, right? So kids watch and mimic, and that's the way we
Yes.
learn. If you try to put in verbal instruction, to your point, Chad, it confuses them. So what's the
Yes.
best way to teach a kid? Just have them watch it and do it, and just
Yes.
have fun, and that's really the way they learn, and that's how they start to establish many of those foundational movement patterns. But it's just that, and it's not overcomplicating it because kids can't process that. So we just
Exactly.
no verbal instruction, just demonstration, and then kind of to everybody's point, what's the best way to really learn that? Well, to sit and watch a game, because that also teaches them the different contextual things that they have to think about within a game, and that's where no real answer to that, because they just scroll the highlights
Yep, that's
of
right.
games.
Kids today don't watch the game. That's exactly right.
They
You're
don't.
exactly right. Very well said, and I don't think that's going to change because of what you just said. They can see the highlights on their phone.
Yeah.
I know.
It's a faster pace.
It is. I asked my son, who's in high school again, but I asked him recently. You know, I every time there's a game on, I said, "But hey, buddy, come watch the game with me." You know, he did
Yeah.
watch the World Series, but you know, I'm gonna say for the most part, he doesn't sit there and watch a baseball game the way we
No.
did. However, he does. He knows who these players are. You know, big leagues, and
Yeah.
I asked him. I said, "Where are you learning all this? Because I don't ever see you watching baseball." He said, "Dad, I see it on my phone." So
That's
you're
right.
right. I mean, he's not watching a game. You know, he's just flipping through the highlights. So,
That's right.
you know,
But I really think that the kid or the generation or whatever, the kids that do go back to that of watching full games, because so much is learned in that. You know, whenever we
Sure.
talk about trying to, you know, mastering skills, and I've talked about, you know, this a little bit in practice. A big part of being able to make the right decision at the right time is understanding all the different components that are going on at the same time, and you don't get that in highlights. So I think the kid or group of kids that will get back to that, and it also enhances their focus and attention, which is needed throughout the duration of a game. The kids that will do that, that's going to be the different generation. How do you get them to do it? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
how to get them to do it, that would be the $1 million question.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have an advantage. I think pitchers
absolutely.
that, you know how to get a hitter out, regardless, and maybe they're throwing 87, but they're getting guys out. Those guys, maybe they get funny looks at first, but sooner or later, I think the people in the game will start to realize that, hold on a minute, this guy's getting people out, you know? And
Yeah.
maybe it starts to get back to that.
I hope so. I unfortunately disagree because I hate to admit this because this is against what I want and what I believe. The generation of coaches today are younger. They're more analytical. They want, and now the accountability of TrackMan in a college baseball game, even a junior college baseball game. There's 3 junior colleges in the state of Mississippi that have TrackMan. Like that blows my mind. So
Right.
they have accountability for the umpires to now a strike is a strike. You're not getting our generation 3 balls off anymore. So where I'm going with this, so now the colleges, because they're more accountable, the college umpire is more accountable because of technology of having a more true strike zone, means from the coaching side, you have to have stuff to be able to pitch over. Well, you got to pitch over the white with that stuff to get people out today. And you can't nibble. I'm not saying the old using the Greg Maddux for a very, I don't mean to disrespect him in any way, but that pitchability type model that, yes, for generations, lesser velocity or lesser stuff guys were able to get people out with or without an expanding strike zone. Nobody wants that anymore from a recruiting aspect. So as much as I want what you want,
Yeah.
every college coach you talk to today, and I'm guilty of it as well, the first question is he gets outs, but is he getting outs with stuff over the white? And if he's not, let him go to JUCO ranks, prove that he can still do it against college hitters, and then we'll revisit it in a couple years.
Mhm.
You're just not seeing guys. Look, just turn on college baseball today. These guys are throwing 100. These guys are throwing 90-mile-an-hour sliders. They don't know where it's going. Major League Baseball, the average miss is 11 inches in Major League Baseball. So it's not the direction of where, and I'm speaking obviously just pitchers, is not being directed towards pitchability as much as stuff. And if you have stuff that you can get close enough to the white, they believe they can hone you in and use you to get people out. Now,
Okay.
a lot of them don't make it, but a lot of them do. And you see it. We watch college baseball, watch the super region. I mean, you got guys throwing like elite stuff, but they can't find the zone. I mean, it unfortunately happens every day. But I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I've seen
May not be,
from
but I hope you are too.
yeah, but from the recruiting side.
That's tough. Crushed my spirits with that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Going back
There's
to some of the
always
stuff,
soccer.
going back to the stuff with some of the stuff on biomechanics, and I don't really do a whole lot on the baseball sites and stuff, but I kind of follow them. But yeah, I get to the point where I don't even want to open up any social media because all I see is, some coach like stopping a pitch and drawing these angles and talking about the foot
Yeah.
doing this and doing that. And to me, it just annoys the heck out of me because
Yep.
it's like there's all this data, but I don't know that they know what to do with it. And I could be
Oh,
wrong
100%.
about that. But Chad, how's your stuff a little bit different with that, if you don't mind me
Well,
asking?
it's because I'm not using any technology. I'm using human touch in regards to everything that we do in our assessments is based off of stability and coordination through different movement patterns that we put the athlete through. So it's not an idea of mine. It's not an idea of a computer's physical stability and coordination that they can feel. And that's what I love so much about this as opposed to some of the technology assessments. Yes, data is one thing, but what do you do with data? And especially if the IQ of an athlete is not obviously data driven, then it's just numbers. Then like, okay, what do you do with it? And the coach can try to translate it. And you're right. Even coaches, do they really know how to translate it or use the data? That you can question that all day long. And I would be definitely on your side with that argument. But what makes ours different, it's much simpler and it's stability that they can feel. Because I don't care what sports you're playing with, in order to have efficient movement and get into your natural sequence, it all has to start off with stability. Well, we have to find your stability points. Everyone has a foot dial. What quadrant of your foot is your most stable quadrant? You have all these ideas of hitting with hands up, hands low, hands away from the body, hands close to the body, torpedo bat, two-piece bat, balance bat. Well, there's just all these, they're all clues, they're all puzzle pieces, but we can help the athlete put their own puzzle, take the pieces of their respective measurements and customize their own puzzle to now then not just get the nucleus, but then give them the blueprint of how to grow the puzzle and complete the outer half of the puzzle, if that makes sense to you,
Mhm.
to get the true picture. And so to me, it's just, again, it's the easiest way to describe this. It's an assessment based off of stability and coordination, and we're using, obviously, my business partner has physical therapy, strength and conditioning background. Like, we're using his skill sets to obviously identify anatomy, like things such as internal, external rotators, obviously flexibility, range of motion. We're using all these clues to help, again, build a profile for the athlete. Then we will use the coaching belt to start staying within the parameters with drills and ideas and philosophies and approaches, instead of just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does, yeah. And when you say stability, I assume you mean like the body being stable.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yes. Yes, correct. But there's no technology, and that's
Yeah.
one of the first things I share with people, because I don't want them to. Once we get them into profile, the next stage is, yes, now let's use technology to validate some things,
Mhm.
but we're not going to chase things based off of a number. And I think that's the wrong approach, because then the athlete's going to start trying to move in a very inefficient, unnatural way, using maybe strength, or I'm using maybe a poor choice of words here, but try to go outside of the grain of the way he should move, just to get a reading,
Mhm.
which that is possible, but that's not sustainable, and that also can result to injury. And that's the last thing when about our piece is, if you're moving in a more natural, efficient state that fits the human, you have a extremely higher percentage chance to stay healthy. There's no guarantees in anything in life, but I promise you, our way, you got a much better chance to stay healthy than you do chasing drills, chasing velo, chasing numbers.
And I always think of that type of stuff, too, those type of numbers as, there can be data like normative data, and they can be good measurements to measure an improvement or, an increase or a decrease over time. But
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yes.
should never be used to chase, like you're
To
saying,
quick
like,
fix. Yes. Good
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Well said. Well said. Well said.
Do you think the assessments as a whole, like if we put somebody through different analysis to measure certain movement patterns, would that be wrong to do compared to just watching the kid move?
Well, I think they both can have value. I would never argue that. But what is the one thing that every coach wants? Consistency. Consistency is in every sport. Well, in order to be consistent, you have to move easier. And in order to move easier, you have to be working off of a stable base, which means you're going to have a more fluid movement pattern instead of a programmed movement pattern, because coach says I have to hit with my hands way out here, or my hands by my ear, and then I might hit a double, but I'm striking out the next 3 times because I'm moving poorly, or because my vision isn't clearer, because I'm very unstable. And so I think the answer to your question is a little bit of both. It's just using some
Yeah.
common sense, but at the same time, at a young age, you know, I think what I've learned, and I'm guilty of this, man. I am guilty. Look, I'll tell this story. I tell it myself all the time. I was one of the highly, well, just established hitting coaches in the country. Of all the places I've been, my offense, the offenses that I've led have owned school records, national records. And you get to a point to where you build an ego, right? There's some pride. I mean, let's just call it what it is. And any coach at any level, it's the same way. You have enough success, you think you can fix anybody, and you think you can coach anybody. And there was a point in time where I was that way, and I was that way with my son at a young age. I told coaches, leave him alone. I got him. And I was so wrong. Absolutely so wrong. Because when they were little, I overstepped my boundaries as a father and as a coach, and disrespected a little league coach. And quite frankly, they didn't want to tell my son anything because they knew my journey and my resume. But at the same time, I was excited to coach my kid at a young age because I was going to build it the way I wanted.
Yeah.
And that was the worst thing you could ever do. So if I did it with my own son, who's to say you're not doing it with yours, or some little league coach or travel ball coach isn't doing it to your kid? And that's the message, because I lived it. I did it the wrong way. I'm not too proud to admit it. I've fixed it to a certain degree, but at the same time, I did do some damage. And I'm regretful of that, because again, right intentions, wrong methods.
Yeah.
Chad, a couple of times you've said moving poorly. And would you define that as just moving in a way that's not natural for them? Or would
Yes.
you look at a movement pattern and say, like, that is crap? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's not
Yeah.
natural to them. It doesn't. That's where I think that's another, to answer your question, I'm going to give you an example. I have coaches, players, dads send me videos all the time. Coach, what do you think this swing? Could you cut up this swing? To your point, Chris, look at the angle of his back foot. You always get comments with it. No, moving poorly the answer to your question is moving poorly for that individual. It doesn't have to look the same. I mean, watch Hunter Pence. He
Right.
moves extremely well, but it doesn't look like Ohtani. It doesn't look like Pujols. So it's understanding, is the young athlete, does it look like to your educated eyes he's moving well to have enough coordination to execute whatever it is, to hit, to throw, to catch, to throw a pitch? Use your educated eyes. Is there stability there? So to answer your question is yes. And then back to the example that I get, when I get these videos and they want me to cut it up, I refuse them. The first thing I always say, in 9 out of 10 times, it's a poor pitch that they swing at of the video that they send. And I respond quickly. First and foremost, watch the pitch. And I don't say anything about the swing.
Yeah.
Look at the pitch you swung at. You can cut up one of Ohtani's swings on a poor pitch and as a educated hitting
valid
coach
point.
and say, well, this is wrong, this is inconsistent. Hell, this is a very difficult sport. I mean, the greatest one in the world, he struggled in the series before. Give some credit to the game and respect to the game and the individual, from the hitting aspect to the individual on the mound. Okay. And there's an element. So back to your original question, I just think, yes, when I see that they move poorly, when I say they move poorly, I think the individual's moving poorly because I see a lot of instability. I see a lot of inconsistencies of how they finish a swing, finish a delivery, how the ball comes out of their hand. Nine out of 10 kids that I see are thrown out a wrong arm slot because of maybe a throwing drill that they did when they were younger. They're a horizontal athlete and they're throwing from a vertical slot because we're doing the old school drill that me and you did, Chris, on one knee. And well, that's awful. That would be terrible for my son.
Right.
So I think, Kyle, that's the answer to my question. I know I kind of went around a circle to get to your answer, but that's the best answer I can give. I'm just using my educated eyes to see if a kid is truly moving in a more natural way that would define his natural way, which would define moving well in my terms.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If there's a perspective I have, I think if you watch an entire lineup of big league hitters hit, you're going to probably see 9 different swings. So
No doubt.
which of those 9 are correct and which are wrong? Well, they're all correct, right? I mean, let's assume those guys, for the most part, are moving naturally, right? They've reached that level, so they're probably doing something right. I had a big league hitter tell me one time that the only thing he really cared about was, let's say, the point of contact. So, he says, is that bat getting to where it needs to be when it needs to be there? He said, what you do before that, I don't care. Get the bat where it's supposed to be when it's supposed to be there, and what you look like before that doesn't matter to me.
Exactly.
There's
so, Kyle, back to your question, to catapult that, Chris, is yes, I totally agree. And that's the whole model of my business, because I'm helping the athlete. Every athlete that comes through here says the same thing. It's easier to get to the ball, and I know where my point of contact is.
Yeah.
When I talk about the hitters. Pitchers, I know where my hand is now because I'm moving well, and I can consistently tell you where my release point is. So now all of a sudden, all the pitches, secondary pitches, get better because you have feel, the things that we say nobody has anymore. And that's 100% in belief of what I do. So that's that gentleman's statement that you met.
Yeah. Well,
There's Dylan, you and I have talked about this before, but there was an old study. I can't even remember the authors right now, but they did it on farriers, horseshoers. And out of this study, they coined this term repetition without repetition. So what they did is they tracked the farrier's swing of the hammer and the strike on the nail, and they tracked hundreds of different patterns, but the strike on the nail was exactly the same. And so that was kind of the thing of there's a variety of different ways to get to the exact same result. It's just different for everybody for any various reasons.
100%.
I think it kind of, not to simplify any of this, but I remember the day I learned the true definition of the word accuracy. So that word's used a lot, right? Was in pitching, not so much in hitting, but to me, the definition of accuracy is the ability to repeat something over and over and over, right? And so what better way to be accurate and repeat something consistently than doing it naturally? I mean, I think Chad is just dead on here with the importance of this natural movement.
No doubt.
Well, I can say, and I know the least about baseball of any of us, but just watching the sport and seeing what y'all are talking about, the way that different batters, almost every batter swings differently, they stand differently, like it's so different, but they're all at a professional level, so they're doing something right. And then trying to think of like, well, how does anybody coach their kids up to do this type of stuff? Because it's all so different. But then, Chad, whenever we first talked and learning more about the motor preferences, that while I still have questions about that, it started to make much more sense about how people are standing and why they're standing that way in the swings and stuff like that. So, I do think the stuff you're doing, it brings a lot of clarity. And I don't know if people are trying to use data to clarify stuff, and to me, it's just making things more confusing. But the way you talk about it, to me, it does seem to align better.
Well, and the last thing I'll say is, of course, as I shared earlier, I coached for 27 years, and just common sense. Who do you think we coach the least? The better players, right? That's the ones we coach the least.
Yeah.
When they're Dylan, you're coaching little kids. Who do you coach the least? The best player.
Yep.
So what are they doing? They're moving more naturally. They're coached they are getting the least amount of information to confuse them. And those are, back to your point, Kyle, those are the ones who are getting to the big leagues because they're coached less, because they're just moving free and they have the coordination. They have whether it be the release point, the point, understanding the point of contact. It might not look, and as they get older, I mean, Will Frizzell and Matt Wallner are probably two. Will Frizzell's from Dallas, actually, coached at Texas A&M. Like, I literally, it's a joke, the things that me and him talked about, because that dude could hit a baseball before I ever stepped foot in College Station. So all I did was tell him not to get so wide because I didn't think he was moving as free. I narrowed his stance a little bit. Dude was an All-American. and a top 10 round pick, hit 21 homers at Texas A&M, and I got out of his way, Dylan. Like, I threw BP and shut up. Like, we're
Yeah.
not talking biomechanics because this is the point I'm trying to make. Those guys on TV, they weren't overly coached. Did they make adjustments along the way? Sure, they did because they got bigger, they got stronger, their anatomy changed. They tweaked things, but it was all based off the foundation of just moving easy. And they did it at a very young age. And that was the blueprint to their growth and success.
Well,
And
I
I
think
think,
that's a
go
lot of
ahead.
coaches like myself. That's my Achilles heel, right? I say a lot of coaches, but not a lot of coaches have. So, like me and Kyle have a similar background with corrective exercising. And I think that's one of my biggest Achilles heels is, and I've gotten better at it over the last, I say, year, but is trying to correct movement patterns too much in these young
Mm-hmm.
kids. And especially like when it comes to swinging and pitching, like
Mm-hmm.
lack of external rotation. I want to give them tons of drills to increase their external rotation, and then hitting if their hips aren't coming through properly, trying to enforce better, exercises that they can use to increase hip strength or hip speed or whatever it is.
And I agree with everything you're saying, just doing it in an athletic, non-biomechanical way, because
Yeah.
they do have
Yeah.
to learn that. It
Yep.
is a learning skill, but when you can make it in a more natural instead of a biomechanical lane, I know that is the answers to making
Well,
better
yeah, and you're
movers.
right. You're right. Me and Kyle actually talked about this yesterday. Is actually going through the baseball movements to increase those, um, like the power and the speed is going through the
Mhm.
baseball movements, not necessarily doing one-legged glute bridges, right?
Yes, exactly.
Kyle,
You know,
should we talk about type?
Yeah, I do want to ask about that, but I also want to say that whenever it comes to movement, and I don't know that anybody convinced me otherwise. So it's nobody. I don't know that anybody's going to try to, but joints are made a certain way, and while there are some variation between people, for the most part, most humans are designed very, very similarly. So, like the hip joint is made to demonstrate a certain amount of rotation, internal, external
Mhm.
rotation. And I think if that's limited, then that will limit natural movement patterns. So I would say if you're doing a set of assessments where you can identify those type of limitations and working on it, that's going to help everything else fall into
Mhm.
I guess kind of like what you're saying too, though, Dylan, not necessarily relating that to a swing or to a pitch or anything necessarily, just human
Yes,
movement.
Yeah.
exactly. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Make them
Yeah,
move
look,
better at a young age and practice less.
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
and
look,
so
let me.
and so and so what
Okay,
you're going to ask, I think, Dylan, how are we going to do that? What are some?
Oh man,
I've
You want
got
me
it.
to ask it?
I think we create Taibo, but with baseball movements.
Yeah.
Well,
You
yeah,
know
well, I
what I
mean,
would
Chad. So
do
what
with
would
young
be?
kids? If I could go back and do one thing with my son. My son I'm not going to get in too much to him, but I'm going to use him as an example. He's a bottom half mover, basically meaning he's like an Albert Pujols, Juan Soto. His best balance points are lower to the ground and more in his heels. He rotates against the ground. It requires a baseline of strength to move efficiently to play at a high level. And where guys go wrong, Dylan, how many guys did you play, or Chris, you as well, play with that just blew up, got bigger,
Mhm.
maybe use supplements, steroids, whatever, and then they become much worse baseball players?
Yeah.
Well, there's a profile that demands that type of strength, and there's a profile that absolutely does not. But you put that kind of strength on Jose Altuve, he's going to be terrible. He's going to be terrible. I would argue anyone to that to death, because I know the type of two different types of movers that Pujols and like my son, who's a ground mover. Now, if I could go back to answer your question, if I could go back with a young athlete, the first thing I would do, Dylan, and why this ended, I don't know. Our generation, I remember running up and down the levees of South Louisiana. Why no one does that anymore, I don't know. My son has made significant strength, dynamically explosive changes in a year's time because I went back to the old school of bounding up a hill, jumping up a levee type steepness of a hill, sprinting, obviously running down. And this is not my expertise by any stretch. This is definitely my business partner. So I obviously branch off of him a bunch. I know y'all have much more, but to me, like, why is that not more in a natural state for a young athlete, and to find his coordination, to find his breaks, to introduce ranges of motion, bounding, being more dynamic, explosive? And you can argue with me. It's worked for my son, and I just don't see why it couldn't work for others.
Well, me and Kyle,
Everybody needs that, and that's something. Sorry to cut you off. I'll make this short, but Dylan and I have talked about that, and I have a theory, and I think it's more than just a theory. But whenever we look at tendon and ligament strength, most of that is developed within the first decade of life. Or you can make a lot of headway. But the only way you stress tendons and ligaments is by getting kids in a natural environment to where they're running up and down hills, they're stepping on tree roots, they're twisting their ankle, they're doing this stuff. So not only does it support full movement patterns and that development of underlying strength and power, it also develops a very robust musculoskeletal system. And I think a lot of people are missing that.
No question.
You can't step on a tree root at your computer screen. That's the problem. You know,
or on a manicured field.
You know,
if you're only playing on a manicured field, you also can't step on a tree root.
But I used to take these kids today and put them on a grass or dirt field. They don't know how to play. You know, they need the turf. But you know, that's again, that's the difference. That's not going to change between our generation and the kids today. You know.
Yeah, me and Kyle talked about like a baseball camp. You take kids out to the swamps of Louisiana.
Yeah.
And you make them, you know, go through those terrains, climb trees, jump down from trees, fall, get back up. I guarantee you they come back a month later, they're a better baseball player.
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. And then you wanna know the old drill that we used to do in South Louisiana? Dylan, I know you remember this. We used to go to, because, you know, again, when you lost, you had to go to basketball. And you had to go football. Kids, and these coaches would do the drill, and you have two athletes at the baseline underneath the goal. You have to face the opposite direction, and he rolls the ball to and you have to go. You have to physically go fight to get that ball. And there was no fouls. And the winner is the guy who puts the thing in the hoop. And like, you want to talk about competition, and you want to talk about toughness and mentality, and just forget biomechanics and all this excess. Like, let's just roll our sleeves up, go get the basketball, put it in the damn hoop. Exactly. You learn how to compete. But none of these kids play basketball anymore, so they don't do that drill.
God, like, I don't know how you fix any of this, you know?
You don't.
I do think, like I said, and, you know, based on stuff I read or whatever, the kid or group of kids or whatever that does get back to that, they're going to be different. Yeah. Who's going to do that?
Well, look at the Dominicans. Look at the Dominicans. That's what they're doing.
Well, that's a great example, actually.
That's what they're doing. And they're on different.
They're on different free movers than them. Yeah, who's more of a free mover than them? Yeah.
They're on different terrains. They don't have concrete. They don't have turf. They have mud.
TrackMan.
But based on that, they're using a broomstick and a bottle cap, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's coordination. It's stability and coordination. They find their own ways to create stability and coordination. And that's what all sports is about.
Yeah.
That's what, and it allows them to repeat. And that's what I believe, at least.
Well, no, I agree. And I mean, sitting here listening to this, I knew this. We all know this, what I just said, but it's just ringing more true to hear y'all talk about it. Of, you know, what our afternoon looked like after school. You know, we said, we watched the Cubs on WGN, but after that, it was, we were outside till dark, you know, doing all these things and developing these strengths and habits, and they're just not doing it now.
Yeah, by the way, Chad, Chris lives in Baton Rouge. We played together growing up.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal. Where'd you play? How old are you?
Me, I'm 38.
Okay, I'm 51, so I'm right above you.
I played college briefly at Belhaven in Jackson.
Oh, yeah. I know Bell. You play for Hill Denson?
After that, so originally Skip Blythe, but then Mike Hutchin.
Okay. I remember him. Okay, good.
And he didn't stay long. He moved over to Air Force Academy.
Gotcha. Yeah, good. Yep, good,
Yeah.
good stuff.
I
Good
was
stuff.
remember when you were talking about running up the levee, that brought up some bad memories because
Yeah,
I went
yeah.
I went there as a pitcher, and
Mhm.
so I never forget first day of practice. We walk out on the field, and the coach said, "Pitcher, well, y'all don't need to be here. Y'all are practicing at Jackson State, which was about
Mm,
2 miles down the road." He said, "Just
mm,
run over there. Pitching coach will meet you over there." And we had to run to the top. He said, "You have 35 seconds to get up to the top, to the upper
mm.
deck, and 1 minute to get down." And we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that all day, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Yeah. All right,
Yep.
I got one last question for Chad. What did you see? So, and I'm comparing this to, or I'm asking this to see what we can do better in youth sports to get these kids prepared for the high school and collegiate level. What do you see mentally, the mental aspect, especially from the college guys that you coached? How were they prepared? What did y'all have in place as far as the mental performance approach? And then also, can we do better as coaches for the younger generation to prepare them for that?
My simple answer is the word belief. Create belief. Despite what it looks like, despite how you want it to look, instill belief in these kids. If you think you truly believe you can get somebody out throwing it that way, show me. Show me. These kids don't believe anymore because they're overcoached, so they lose belief because they're questioning. If I have 10 athletes at any age walk in this building from high school or under in any type of lesson format or assessment format, they're confused. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. I don't believe in anything. I use it even as a 51-year-old when I go to the golf course. I'm assessed and I don't believe in a swing yet. And that's why I'm still a very average golfer. And I'm an adult and I'm mature and I know I don't have belief. And I know that's why I can't gamble with the guys down the road at the next course because I don't believe in it yet. Well, how the hell is a young kid ever supposed to play at a high level if he never believes in something? He has to believe that I'm supposed to throw from this arm slot. I'm supposed to hit. You have to instill some belief. So then the competition piece that we say they don't have will then surface. Because if you believe in something, you will go compete. I believe I can get under a bench press and go compete with you, Dylan, in a weight room because I know I've seen myself do it. I've seen the ball go through the hoop. They have to see the ball go through the hoop to believe. And I'm just a and that sometimes just if you can instill belief and will are the two things because we both know it's a very imperfect sport, despite what they're educated to believe. Sometimes you can just roll your sleeves up and you can want it more than the next guy. And maybe you can't do that skillfully at the SEC level, but maybe that gets him to a small mid-major or D3 school and gives the kid an opportunity to play at a college level, get a degree, have a great experience, meet lifelong friends, and just create all the things it created for you, Dylan, and you, Chris, and for me, both as a player and as a coach. Did I want to play in SEC? Sure, I did. But would I give anything up of my experience at Southern Miss to go play in SEC? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Again, I I just think belief and will get you a long way.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, God's got a plan for all of us. And if the chips fall, it takes a little luck too. You can have all the talent in the world. We got restrictions with limitations of rosters, and so it takes a little bit of luck to be in the right place, right time too.
Yeah.
When you say that belief and will, I've maybe you've heard of grit, and I've talked about it a little bit on the show. But grit is this. It's essentially two different subcomponents. One is perseverance of effort, and the other one is consistency of interest. And this goes into a success formula. But I get those two things, belief and will, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you have the will to persevere in the face of adversity,
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right? Adversary? That doesn't sound right to
Adversity,
my
yeah,
head for
yeah.
some reason.
Adversity.
Adversary, yeah. But then the other one is that belief is consistency of interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think I can be successful doing this, and I'm going to stick with it. And
Exactly.
time and time again, that outweighs talent, that outweighs coaching, that outweighs so much, because it's sticking with something, believing that you can do well,
Exactly.
and doing it over time, and
No doubt.
that's what's the
No
difference
doubt.
creator.
Absolutely. Well
Yeah.
said. I don't know grit, but I'm gonna have to look into the grit.
Yep, it's good. I'm trying to do a study on it right now with adolescence and endurance performance.
Yeah, and that's the last piece that I will say about my business model. I truly believe in what I'm doing, and I know every player that walks out of here now has a belief in a foundation of how I'm going to get this done. I believe this is my answers. Now, where it takes me, it's up to the individual. It's not a magic pill, but this can help them get to their ceiling. And it starts with belief.
It does. I was, the only other thing I would say, just to piggyback on that, and I completely agree, is that the event I was at a couple of weeks ago, what they said was trust is kind of the same thing.
Same thing. Same thing.
Trust yourself. I saw, Durbin for years tell our younger pitchers, here's let them and the catchers call the pitches. He says, we can probably win a few more games if I call the pitches for you, but that's not how I want you to learn. You call the pitches. And then, and he would look at these guys and say, just trust it. If that's the pitch you want to throw, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Just trust it and throw it. Steve Rodriguez said 2 weeks ago, he said, you need to, on game day, you need to believe that you've done the preparation, you're in the position you need to be in. Now just go out there and do it. But this second guessing of, could I have done more? Am I doing the right thing? It's not going to get you anywhere. You've done the preparation. Now go out there and perform. It's the same thing.
Chris, I'm so glad you said that, because it's going to go back to Dylan, your question. You want to know how I would instill belief into that young age? Why or I don't know if you do or do not, but why are these coaches calling pitches? Who cares who wins at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds? Who cares?
Yeah.
Or do you
Parents.
remember, Dylan, anything you did when you were 12 years old? No, you don't.
much.
Do you remember everything you did at UL Lafayette?
No.
Yeah, you do. Well, you remember those more than you did it when you were 8, 9, 10. So the point is to instill this belief in this will. Let them fail.
Yes.
Let them call the wrong pitch, because the pitchers, every pitching coach in the country says you have to have intention and to throw with intent. Well, if you don't believe in anything and you question what the hell you're throwing, how are you ever going to throw with intent? And you can start instilling that into the youth at a young age. Let them make mistakes. And then you can coach them after. Say, what was your thought
100%.
process of why did you throw that pitch? And he's going to give you an answer. And you know what? You say, well, you know what? If you believe that was the right pitch, then it was. Even though the outcome wasn't correct, that's how you start instilling belief in these kids. But instead, all these Johnny super dads and little league coaches and travel ball coaches want to win championships because they're living through somebody else's kids. I have to call every pitch. Come on, man. Come on, man. That's
It's so true. It's so true.
100%.
You're creating robots, man. You don't know it. You're doing it for yourself. It's a selfish act, and you're not doing this for the betterment of the next generation.
Yeah.
And no one. I'll argue anybody to death with that, and I'll be willing to put anybody on if they want to argue. But I so wholeheartedly believe that that's a problem.
Yes.
I agree.
Oh yeah,
I agree
100%.
100%. Yep.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, we would have parents question exactly what we're talking about. Chad, this coach who pitched for 15 years in the big leagues, and they said, well, why don't you call him the pitches? Because I don't care if we win. I'm trying to teach this pitcher and catcher the why behind these pitches.
Exactly.
And we said they're going to do exactly what Chad just said. If the result wasn't good, You know, he would say exactly that. Well, tell me why you threw that pitch. I just want to understand your thought process. And that's how they learn.
Well, and it goes back
Yeah.
to belief too and trust. How are they going to trust or believe in themselves if you're calling the pitches?
Exactly. They're
know?
robots.
They don't learn to think for themselves, you know? And
Bingo.
like I said, my high school coach, who was he at UL with you, Dylan?
Yeah, Chad knows them.
Yeah,
Wayne
Ray
Semino.
Semino. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Ray was the first guy that told me, you know, baseball's, I don't know, 93% mental. And I thought, well, this is crazy. But these kids don't learn the mental side of that if we're making all the decisions for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I always, and I don't ever know if this is a very good comparison, but I always kind of think of it as like a chess game, to where just because the pitch doesn't work out this time, well,
Yeah.
you're gonna face that batter again some other
That's
time,
right.
and he might
That's
think you're
right.
gonna throw that same pitch, but this time you clean it up or something. So I always try to think of it in that of like, well, this is one piece of a very large picture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
picture. So not pitcher, but picture.
Yeah.
But then it's getting that idea too of, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, of removing the language of like good and bad, removing those labels. This is just a thing that happened, and whenever it comes back around, it might be different next time.
Hey, yes, on that note, you can look this up on the internet that we don't like. And I agree. But there's a story. It's Greg Maddux, right? And I think Eddie Perez tells the story, and their face, I might get it a little bit wrong, but Maddux, you know the story? He's
I
facing
know where you're going.
Bagwell in July, you know, and I don't remember what pitch he throws him. Bagwell hits it out of the park, you know, and he comes off the field, and Perez says, "What are you doing? Why'd you throw him that pitch?" He said, "Here's the deal. We're good. They're good. We're going to face them again in October, and he's going to be looking for that pitch."
Yep.
It was a total setup, you know, but that's this mental side of this game, and that we're not allowing these kids to learn that.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Dylan, let them swing 3-0. Let them throw 3-2 breaking balls.
Yep.
They're gonna have to do it later in life. There's only one way to learn how to believe and have conviction. That's another word I use a lot. You got to have conviction with specifically pitchers when you throw pitches, and I just think those are some things. And it is. You're right. It's a fine line because you gotta. It is the ultimate job to teach them to learn how to win, but sometimes the win is down the road and it's not what's staring right in front of us.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is, my kid is 18-year-old. I can tell you right now, he does not remember any, and he was on a team that won a lot of rings. He don't remember any of it
No.
when they were young. He doesn't remember any of it.
My
And he
kids
doesn't
don't know where their
care.
damn rings are.
Yeah, he
Right.
doesn't care. So what's the message? We have to, as a society, okay, we built this monster. We have to now look ourselves in the mirror. Are we using this platform wisely? Or are we just enjoying the ride of winning some rings that'll be ghosts in a few years? And so, like, again, it goes back to, what are the goals? If the goal is developing, then it's a poor
Right.
execution, maybe, for lack of a better word.
Well, it's the same thing you see with coaches recruiting better players every single season to replace the players that didn't help you win, right?
That's exactly
And
right.
So instead of developing players, we're recruiting players to win rings and go and call ourselves national, right? But then what happens to all those players that you let go? You screwed them and their family. Well, I guess not their family, but you screwed them over along the way by not just developing them into winning players too.
Crushing dreams all at the same time.
Well, you know, Dylan, what did we say? You know, I think the first episode I was on, and we talked about, as a youth baseball coach only, what was our goal? Our goal, you know, we want to build good humans and good teammates and teach them about life. But on the baseball side, the only real goal I had was to prepare them for high school. You know, all this biometric stuff, that's later. That's a higher level than high school. And that's not up to me as a youth coach. You know, all I'm trying to do is prepare them for high school, period. You know, what they do beyond that is up to them and guys like Chad that are going to coach them at that next level, not me. But too many of these youth coaches who never played college ball, certainly didn't play professional ball, are trying to create big leaguers. And they don't know the first thing about it.
Yep.
No.
coach with a big leaguer who didn't try to create big leaguers.
I mean, would any of you say, and my son's 6, right? So he's at the very, very bottom of all this. But I think for him at his age, the most important thing I want is for him to learn how to lose and to
Yeah.
learn that it doesn't matter, because he had a playoff game a couple of weeks ago and they were focused on the ring. He's 6. I didn't even know he knew about rings. I didn't know they were going to get a ring. But they lost and kids were crying, and these are really good kids. He's got a good coach, right? So it's nothing too bad. But I just think, like, even though it's hard for me, I don't like watching him lose, but that's what I want. I want him to learn that losing doesn't really matter. You just get up and keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to know
I
how to
mean,
get up.
we are always okay with, you should be upset when you lose. It's part of it. You need to know how to lose, but it needs to sting a little bit. If it doesn't sting, then I don't know if you know how to compete,
Yeah.
It's not completely okay to lose,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about rings or any of that. Kyle, if your son wants some, I have 30 of them. I'll mail them to you. He can have them.
No,
I
I don't.
think the message is simply this. I get asked this question all the time. Coach, what was the difference between coaching at a high mid-major of University of Southern Mississippi versus an SEC? What was the difference in the players? Could some of the players at Southeastern, even at when the junior college I was at, which is full of draft picks, could they have played in the SEC? Answer the question the exact same way every time, and it supports what you're saying, Kyle. The biggest difference is this: it's not skill level. It's the ability to get off of the mat. I use the boxing analogy. The SEC is the best of the best. You get no breaks. You go to Vandy, you can easily go 0 for 10 and get swept. To your point of losing, you lost. How you handle and respond that is everything. The mid-major, the junior college, the high school player doesn't know how to take that knockout punch, and Vandy puts you on the map to get up and get back in the fight. Because guess what? Florida's next weekend, then Tennessee's next weekend, then South Carolina, and now Texas, Oklahoma. There's no feeling sorry for yourself. No disrespect to any schools in all the conference, but there's no bottom of the barrel. There's top end conference level teams in certain conferences, and there's bottoms. You don't get to coast and go 10 for 10 against a lesser opponent. There are no lesser opponents. They don't let you breathe. They try to suffocate you in the SEC. And that's what Kyle's saying, even at a younger age. It's not accepting losing. Can you get off the mat? So it's a mentality, and more so than it is a skill set. Did I have players that skillfully could play in the SEC that did not? Sure. Did they have the ability to get off the mat? I'll never know. I like to tell you what I believe on some of them, and I know some of them could not have. Because the moment they would have got knocked down going 0 for 10 at Florida with a loss, they would have sulked all week. The in-state mid-major rival would have kicked their ass on Tuesday. Then here comes Tennessee, and their asses are still getting knocked down. They never get up. So that's the mentality piece that league demands that no other league demands.
Yeah.
And I've been in all of them. And those are lessons that you want to somehow instill into kids when you're playing the top end. You play the best travel ball team at 6, but then you play a rec ball team and you make them feel good again.
Right.
You have to figure that out, but they're very immature mentally. So you got to be, you got to be the adult there to make them understand. But ultimately, that's what you got to get to, because that's what life's about. Life's not going to knock you on that mat all the time. Yeah. So you got to be able to get up. You got to be able to get up. That's what successful people do.
Yeah. And in baseball, we have to get up a lot more than you don't, because we've established that it's a game of failure. Not just the wins and losses.
I hate that word. Now, Chris, I apologize, and it gets thrown around. It's not a game of failure. It's a game of opportunity.
Yeah.
We know the common sense is you're going to fail more. Quit using failure. You're using a negative word into these kids. It's a game of opportunity. The game's supposed to take 7 opportunities away from you in 10 at bats. Not the team, not the coach. The game says your Hall of Famers are hitting 300. So
Right.
7 at bats, the game is taking from you. So
Yeah.
you have 3 opportunities to go, 10 opportunities to go get your 3.
Okay.
What'd you say, Kyle? What did you say, Kyle?
He
It's a-
says game of failure. I don't like, and I apologize.
No,
I
No,
don't
no,
know.
no. I know what you mean.
no. Kyle
so,
said,
yeah,
what's that thing that you
Dylan,
say?
I don't even know if I can remember right now, but Dylan and I've talked about that. I mean, I would love to get rid of that word of
Me too. I
of
hate it.
failure, because
Hate
just exactly what you're saying, Chad.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I had a solution to that though. But feedback.
do.
Yeah, not failure, feedback.
We'll do
That's
that
what
on
it is.
another
Feedback,
podcast.
that's what
I'll
it
give
was.
you. I'll give you
Feedback.
a
Yeah.
whole nother podcast of that if you want, because I'm a strong
Yeah.
believer in changing language.
Absolutely.
to-
Well,
to-
I like what you said there, opportunity, but I think what I've called it in the past is feedback. Is it's not failure. You're just always
Yeah.
getting feedback.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that too. I'm gonna steal that.
good.
I'll
I'm going
put
to
that
steal
in
yours
my
as
tool
well.
He
I'm gonna
said
put
that
that
in
in my
our
tool
mental.
belt.
He said that in our
Perfect.
mental performance clinic that we had, and
Yeah.
that I like
Mhm.
that. It's
Mhm.
feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback.
Yeah.
I like that. I do
Yeah.
like that.
Well, this has been great. We've gone an hour and 20 minutes. We can keep going, or maybe we can plan another one in the future.
I would
Yeah.
love to get on the
We'll
future for
definitely
sure.
Excellent.
Another
Yeah.
one.
Hey, Chad, for your business and some of the stuff that you do you have a website or any way
I do.
people
I do.
our 12 subscribers can get more
Yeah,
information?
it's pretty simple. It's baseball performance specialist with no
Okay.
S, all obviously no spaces. Baseball performance specialist .com, and they
Okay.
can jump online, learn a little bit about us, me, my business partners, and a little bit of what we do. And I'd love to be able to share a link with you guys if I could.
Yeah,
We
excellent.
can
And I
put
can
it on
put
the post. On the post.
Yeah,
Put it on
that'd
the
be
post,
great.
Kyle.
yeah, we can put it in the show notes, and I can also pop the
Kyle, we have
the
18
website up there too as well.
subscribers, by the way, not
18.
12.
18.
Come on, bro.
Hey, it's just going to keep growing, keep going from there. Well, Chad, I thought that was wonderful. Great information. It seems like the more we kept talking, the more excited I would get about stuff. So I
Good.
thought it was
It's
good.
fun.
Anything else to add before we wrap up from anybody
No,
here,
man.
Chris, Dylan,
Y'all
Chad?
keep doing what y'all doing. I appreciate what y'all doing for kids, and I know y'all got little ones, and yeah, keep the game going. It's a beautiful game.
Yep.
We'll
Yep.
do.
It is.
Thanks,
We'll plan
Chad.
on
Thanks,
it.
Thank
Chris.
you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.